Hello and welcome to the Sunday Guardian podcast by Joyeeta Basu. Viewers, as you know, President Donald Trump has become the 47th president of the US, and ever since he is creating what is known as, a lot of analysts are saying disruptions in terms of not just domestically but also internationally. He has withdrawn from the Paris Climate Agreement, he has withdrawn from WHO. Now he's threatening a lot of people with a lot of sanctions and tariffs and all. Now, where does India figure in all this? So, to discuss President Trump domestically, his policies internationally, and of course, India US relations under President Trump, I have a special guest with me today, Professor Chintamani Mahapatra, who is editor of India Quarterly and founder chairperson of Kalinga Institute of Indo-Pacific Studies. He is formerly Pro-Vice Chancellor of the Jawaharlal Nehru University of New Delhi. Welcome, Professor, to the show.
Thank you, Joyeeta.
Now, first question obviously is that you only mentioned that Trump is a disruptor while you were chatting with me before this podcast. Why are you using that term for Donald Trump?
I'm using that term because Donald Trump not once but repeatedly have made some statements which are not going to support the status quo either in American politics or global politics. He has taken positions which are sometimes completely opposite to the prevailing order. For example, he wants to change the name of Gulf of Mexico.
Yes.
Now, is Gulf of Mexico the name given by the Americans? It has been there for a long, long time. So suddenly Mexico reacts saying that you cannot do that. Then suddenly he's saying that Panama should be under American control. Americans built it up, and Joe Biden, Jimmy Carter, Panama Canal. Panama Canal was built by thousands of Americans. They lost lives also. And Jimmy Carter handed it over to them. Now, same Panama Canal is now operated by China. It is not true. China is not operating it, but Chinese are using it in a very massive way. So suddenly Panama is reacting to it. He calls the Prime Minister of Canada as a governor, and that was also a big surprise. Apparently, it looks like a joke.
Yes, that is what I want to know.
But later when he said that if Canada becomes the 51st state of the United States, the Canadian people will benefit a great deal. They will save a lot of tax, and goods can flow from this side to that side more easily. And then all of a sudden he says Greenland, Denmark should sell Greenland and we want to buy it. Now, by making these kind of statements, basically he is saying things that NATO members, American allies, are feeling very uncomfortable. So he is a disruptor in a way. Domestically, if you see, he's saying that people who were the rebels on 6th of January 2021, attack on the Capitol Hill, some of them are in jail, some of them have been tried, and Donald Trump says that those people are actually hostages. For the American judiciary system or law enforcement division, they are the criminals. They have violated American rule. But Donald Trump says they have been framed and they're actually the hostages. It's a clear-cut case of disruption in American politics as well. So, about the tariff, now suddenly he says that he's going to impose unilateral tariff hike for European Union, for Mexico, for Canada. Now all of them are surprised. How can you do it unilaterally? He's not saying that come let us sit and negotiate and discuss because you guys are running huge trade surpluses and trade should be balanced. He's not talking about negotiation. He is talking about imposing high tariffs. So I would say that he's trying to disrupt the order by making different positions on issues which are traditionally not like that.
How successful do you think will he be able to do all the things that which will actually cause disruptions? Is it mere rhetoric, or is there more substance to it?
Actually, it is rhetoric also, but at the same time, it reflects the intention of the American president. Now, when he's going to impose tariff, other countries are not going to take it lying down. He did the same thing during his first term, and China retaliated. Even India retaliated with counter tariffs. So when he's saying this, other countries are worried because at the moment, the global political economy is not in good condition. There is inflation all over. Then there is energy crisis. The Ukraine war is going on. And then you have the war in the Middle East. Because of these reasons, the political economy is not doing well at all. So at a time when many countries are facing a lot of difficulties in their economic growth, Trump says we are going to impose tariff, that is going to affect their economy in a very bad way. So they don't want any kind of new things and new discussion on tariff issues at least. For some time they want some kind of stability so that in a cooperative manner they can resolve the political economy of the globe. So it's not going to be easy. They are going to retaliate. In fact, European Union, China, all of them have been preparing for quite some time. Initially, they were not very comfortable with Trump contesting election. And when he did, and his opinion, in the opinion poll, he was doing very well, then they began to take him more seriously. And they tried different kind of plans, how to manage Trump 2.0 administration. So it is not going to be cakewalk for him.
But then he has the support, which I think everyone, except perhaps some in India, I would say, everyone misread the support that he has. Because, and do you think this is also largely playing to the gallery, playing to his domestic audience? That yes, I'm making America great again. I am kind of isolationist policy. So is it actually, he is looking for headlines, more like he's looking for headlines than actual, policy implementation?
For a political leader, the most important thing is votes.
Yes.
All political leaders
In a democracy, yes.
in a democracy, that target how to win the next election. So most of the statements that he made during the campaign were aiming at certain constituencies in the US. Those constituencies were backing him without raising any question. For example, when he says that if Chinese electric vehicles will be imported, I'm going to stop it. Because if the Chinese EVs come to the US, there'll be bloodbath. What he meant was most of the workers in the auto industry, they'll be out of jobs.
Yeah.
Because they cannot compete with the Chinese cars. Now, that appealed to the people in auto industry, the working class, very well. And then he says the Proud Boys and the oath takers who are the far-right extremists, they are actually great American citizens who love America. And these guys are framing them. That also sold. Then he was shedding crocodile tears that the Biden administration had framed him. And the American judicial system, law enforcement system, was weaponized by the administration, and it was a kind of ghost hunting. So by saying this, he is trying to draw sympathy from the people that think, no, Trump is actually right. Unnecessarily, they are picking a fight with him, filing many cases.
What is known as lawfare.
Yeah. But in reality, when Trump is making all kinds of statements, he has already issued large number of executive orders.
Yeah, that is what I wanted to ask you about. The 200 plus executive orders.
On the very first day when he signed that, most of them are not implementable. They will take time. Some of them are going to be challenged in the courts.
Give me one example.
One example is the citizenship one.
Okay.
He says that he is opposed to giving citizenship to anybody who is born in the United States. Now, when he said that, 18 states for 2 cities have already gone to the court. You cannot do that. This is violative of Article 14th of the American Constitution.
Right.
This is unconstitutional. So there will be a long struggle in the court about the right and wrong, yes or no and all that. And then he is using emergency. Like, for example, an emergency along the Mexican border. He's deploying even troops. Actually, he's doing whatever he promised. But again, at the level of implementation, it's not going to be done then and there. For example, there are lakhs of illegal immigrants in the United States, 11 million of them, undocumented immigrants. Now, how easy it is to go and catch them and keep them in a deportation camp and then send them back to their countries. First, you have to identify whether that guy is from India or from China or from Kenya. The Indians, suppose, for example, there are a large number of Indians also there. About 18,000 Indian names are there as per the reports. Now, those Indians could be from Fiji, could be from Kenya, not from India. How are they going to find out and send them back? Sending them back, deporting, is it cost-free? You need aircraft, you need the fuel. It is going to have a huge cost. So he is doing whatever he promised during the election to satisfy certain constituency, but implementing all those is not going to be easy. There's going to be a tremendous amount of resistance within the United States, even outside the United States, to all those things that he's trying to disrupt.
So, what about the two executive orders about withdrawing the U.S. from the Paris Climate Agreement, and the other one being the withdrawing from the WHO?
This is not the first time that an American administration is withdrawing from international institutions. The United States certainly is one of the largest funder, give a lot of money to all those institutions, but then it is not out of any humanitarian concern. They get a lot of benefit out of it. So by walking out of WHO simply because China's lobby is working very well is not a right decision at all. If by withdrawing, he's able to throw Chinese lobby out, then one can understand. In fact, China is going to dominate more in the absence of the United States. In case of climate change also, the United States is the second largest polluter in the world. And you are working out of a Paris Accord where almost all the countries have signed onto it. And there is going to be a cooperative effort to control the global warming. If global warming is not controlled, is the US going to be staying outside that zone? It is a global problem. Everyone is going to be affected. So if Donald Trump thinks that he has done a great job, it is not. In fact, he has also given orders that more and more gas and oil should be explored and drilled in the US. Drill, boy, drill, he said during his inauguration speech. Now, by doing that, he'll be polluting more, right? So, in fact, there are many Americans who say that pollution is going to hit the world. That means that is including the United States of America. Secondly, WHO was at least able to put some guardrail against pandemic. Only recently we experienced the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, by walking out of it, United States will not be private to a lot of information and research and outcome of research that WHO is doing. So this is a decision which is going to affect even American interest.
No, but then when you're looking at that WHO was definitely complicit when it came to COVID. They did try to hide the whole thing. So, shouldn't WHO have been punished?
There are many other ways to do so, rather than withdrawing from it. Withdrawal is not a punishment. Withdrawal means you are going to create problems for yourself as well. Being active, being part of it, and trying to bring about changes in the system is a better way to do it. After all, there are many, many countries, including the United States, including President Trump during first term. He talked about Wuhan virus, and the Chinese were really angry. They did not know how to respond to it. But by saying that it was Wuhan virus, there was certain amount of dislike for China because China did not divulge to the world what happened in Wuhan. So those are the public relations exercises which are also one kind of punishment to a country which is hiding information, deadly information from the rest of the world. So withdrawing from those institutions is not the right way to go about.
So, now that China, you see, front and center, it's all about China actually. So, do you think by going out of this, WHO and all, Trump is in a way ceding not only space to China, he's, handing the whole of on a global south to China on a platter?
As far as global south is concerned, I think India has much better credential. China rather wants to get in and compete with India for influence in the global south. It was India which convened Global South Summit twice before the G20 meeting. It was India that promised and then delivered on the promise by uh, by informing the G20 leaders about the problems faced by the Global South and to address those issues, including the foreign debt issue. Right? It was India again which played tremendous amount of constructive role and made African Union a member of the G20. Before that, all 19 countries and one EU. EU is not a country. So if EU, a regional organization, can be part of it, why not African Union, a large number of countries from the global south be part of G20? So by doing that, Donald Trump is not sending it out to China. Rather, by doing that, Donald Trump is harming American interest only. This is how I look at it. Having said that, if he has complained about Chinese lobbying activities in WHO, then withdrawal is not the right way to deal with that problem. If China controls WHO, and if China plays a much better role in climate change conferences, then who will lose the soft power? Who will lose the leadership role on
Yeah.
global issues? The US only.
So when you're looking about specifically US-China relationship, interestingly, there was so much rhetoric against China and that, tariffs, I'll be imposing this much tariff and that much tariff. But at the same time, it was Xi Jinping that he invited for his inauguration. It's a different matter that Xi Jinping did not accept that and sent his vice president. What exactly is going on? How do you see US China relations developing under Trump?
I think that was a very smart move on the part of President Trump to have invited Xi Jinping, Chinese president, to his inauguration, to have spoken to him on telephone before the inauguration, and then giving 75 days time for TikTok to look for a buyer in the US. By doing all these, Trump wanted to create an impression in the Chinese mind and in the rest of the world that Trump does not want to contain China, but Trump does not want China to dominate the world either. Trump wants some kind of fair deal with China. So, in a way, he said that by raising tariffs, we are just trying to address the trade surplus that China has, and the trade is imbalanced trade. I'm prepared to negotiate. Come and talk with me. So I think this is a very mature way of handling China. Let me remind you that it was Donald Trump who took the bold step of imposing high tariffs on China during his first administration. And that was the first time ever that an American president took such a drastic step. That literally led to a kind of mini economic Cold War between the US and China. Right? When Joe Biden came to power, he carried on the same policy. He did not undo it. And in fact, right now, Trump also made a statement that China in any case is under tariff, and we are now considering how much more tariff to be imposed on China. So by making this kind of statements, he wants to say that China is a competitor, we're prepared to compete. But China have to play on the basis of fair rule and a level playing field, and China must negotiate on that. If you see the other side, it is also, in a way, a very smart move, I would say, because Donald Trump many times has said that he's going to end the war in Ukraine. It has not ended.
Yep.
It is a very complex issue. One of the ways to handle Putin is to bring about certain amount of distance between Beijing and Moscow. What else could be a better way to do it than reach out to Beijing for negotiation? Chinese, on their side also, don't want any open confrontation with the United States because they'll also lose. Chinese economy is relatively declining. Chinese economic growth rate is no more like a horse galloping, double-digit growth anymore. So they don't want any kind of confrontation. They want to discuss, hold dialogue, and sort it out. So by taking advantage of that, he's playing multiple games so that China can negotiate, Putin will negotiate, and then he'll tell the people, I am the leader, America first, I have protected American interest.
Yeah. Now, since you talked about the war, there's another war that is going on in the Middle East. the Israel Hamas, then of course Iran situation, there's Syria. Do you think there's going to be a second part of the Abraham Accord, number one? And do you think there is going to be peace? Will you be able to bring peace to the Middle East, specifically in the context of Iran and Israel?
I think there is going to be a relative peace in the Middle East after the ceasefire, and if the fighting doesn't resume, there will be relative peace. But what kind of peace this is? One side is completely decimated. The other side has thumping victory. So in a way, it's going to be uneasy peace. But as far as the US is concerned, they know that the world is dependent to a considerable extent on the oil and gas from the Middle East.
Right.
Right? And that includes the European Union and the NATO member countries. The US is not dependent on the Middle Eastern oil. So this is where the US has a leverage over the allies, and at the same time, some of the adversaries like China, which is also buying a lot of oil and gas from the Middle East. By supporting an early conclusion of ceasefire, by making very strong statements, Trump has no doubt about it played a role in the recent ceasefire declared between Hamas and Israel. But then he is giving full support, 100% support to Israel. And Israel is the victor. The Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iranians are now subdued. Right? So ceasefire could be possible. If there is no ceasefire, there will be more destruction on the other side. Israel is not going to be decimated by this kind of warmongers. So I think he has played a very deft role. I'm sure if there is peace, relative peace, Trump will try to further strengthen I2U2 and ensure that Abraham Accord is accepted and strengthened further. He's also going to put a little pressure on Saudi Arabia to resume dialogue with Israel for some kind of rapprochement and cooperative ties. So he will try to do that.
So when you're talking about I2, U2, as viewers must be knowing, it is India, Israel, I2, and U2 is US and UAE. And in fact, there is some talk, or there's already buzz has started, I was reading, about that there's a possibility that the UAE will be involved in the rebuilding of Gaza. So obviously that will be coming with a US blessing. So yes, this I2, U2 is a huge possibility. And it has a lot of potential to do a lot of things. Now, which brings us to obviously India-US relations. How do you see things? Because as you said that Trump is a disruptor. So how do you see things shaping up in this particular area when it comes to India-US relations?
I think India is on the bright spot right now. At a time when the European allies are concerned about Trump 2.0 administration openly making statements. China and Russia also find a lot of uncertainty in dealing with a man who has a mercurial personality. Japan, South Korea, Australia are also not sure what kind of policy Trump is going to adopt. India happens to be a country which behaves like a cool cat.
That's a very
And India appears to be very confident of handling Donald
handling.
Trump, partly because of history that Prime Minister Narendra Modi had deft diplomacy in engaging a personality like Donald Trump. When he made his first visit to the United States during the Trump administration, very many people were having a certain amount of anxiety. You never know in what way Trump is going to behave. He behaved very well and befriended Narendra Modi ji that time. And later, of course, everybody knows about how Howdy Modi rally in Houston,
Houston.
and then Namaste Trump rally
In
in
Ahmedabad.
Ahmedabad. Those were not just symbol. Those had little bit of substantive outcome as well, in the sense that Indo-US relations can be further strengthened only when the attention is given at the topmost level. When the two leaders have good, positive chemistry, implementation of cooperative agreements become faster. resolution of differences becomes easy, right? Postponing more difficult issues also becomes very easy. So right now, India knows that it has handled the Trump 1.0 administration very well, and 2.0 is also equally going to be good for the simple reason that there is bipartisan support in the US Congress, whether it is Democrat or Republican administrations. They want to befriend India. So that becomes a great facilitator in strengthening the current relationship, having new initiatives and programs, and moving ahead with the strategic partnership. Whatever is happening in the Indo-Pacific is an area of tremendous amount of strategic convergence between India and the United States. Everyone knows that who or which country is the real problem in the Indo-Pacific. It is China. Everybody talks about Chinese assertiveness, Chinese aggressiveness, and Chinese, reclaiming islands in the South China Sea and building military facilities. China engaging in gray zone warfare with smaller countries like the Philippines and creating problem for the fishermen of other countries. Everybody knows that. India and the US have begun to look at South China Sea more openly, and both of them have made statements that there should not be any coercive diplomacy or coercive action. There should not be any unilateral effort to change the status quo. So this is where India and the US are together. Indo-Pacific is a region where India and the US have a lot of things in common to achieve, particularly free and open and stable Indo-Pacific region. So India is a huge country like China in terms of geography. India is a big country vis-a-vis China as a highly populated country. India is a great civilization like China. India has very powerful military as well. India can be a counterweight to China. Does not mean that India is going to fight a war.
Exactly.
Does not mean that India and the US are going to contain China. But then this particular position of India is going to help in managing China and preventing Chinese unilateral behavior, making China a stakeholder in the peace and stability in the region. That is why I'm very optimistic about Indo-US relationship. There will be hiccups, there will be differences, even on trade and investment and economic issues, because India's compulsions are different, American priorities are different. So there will be differences, but we are confident of negotiating it, navigating it through differences, and maintaining the strategic partnership.
So, when you're talking about, the different areas, immigration is a major, I think, question mark right now. How do you think that problem will get sorted out, if at all?
Donald Trump is openly saying that there are undocumented illegal immigrants in the United States. Any country in the world, including India, while handling some illegal issues, should not create a problem for other countries. So if there are people who have migrated to the United States through illegal means and the US wants to throw them out, they should. And why not? Neither India nor any other country should complain about it. But if there are legal migrants who have held good, appropriate visas and they're either studying there or doing business or they're working there, that should not be an issue. In fact, quite a few American lobbyists who are against immigration, who are against immigrants, they're arguing that Indians are taking away American jobs. This is wrong. Studies have been made that Indian workers in the United States, mostly professionals, they are not competing with the American jobs. Rather, it is complementary because the area of expertise are different. Some of the Indian companies are creating hundreds of thousands of jobs in the USA. And when some people say that, a lot of retrenchment taking place in the companies, in that retrenchment and loss of jobs, even Indians are there. So wrong kind of information is being paraded in the US. a narrative is being built against India, where the government of India should also take note of and exchange notes with the Trump administration. Please wake up. We are your friends. We are not your enemies. And these are the facts. And this is the narrative by certain interested groups. This is where immigration should be handled properly by India.
So basically, you have to send out that message. Uh, yeah, I think messaging is one area where the Indian government has always fallen short. And illegal immigrants, obviously, there is no reason why India should be lobbying for them.
Yeah.
So is that also the reason why? I mean, Trump is also a transactional man. You have to give them some give him some talking points. So I think one talking point could be that, see, India took back 18,000 people. Do you think that's how it's going to work out?
It is going to work out that way, and then to convince the Trump administration that Indian workers are promoting economic growth, contributing to innovation in the country, creating jobs in the United States. So those things should be understood properly while framing the rules and regulations regarding H-1B visa and other kinds of visas.
So then, of course, as we were discussing ahead of this podcast, there are issues like, say, energy, climate, then Quad. So how do you see these areas going forward? I mean, what is the progress that India can make in these areas when with the US when Donald Trump is president? And of course, the question of defense. If you're looking at ISET, that critical technology transfer, the GE F404 engine and all, it seems certain delays have crept into this whole defense sector in particular. Do you think these problems are going to be sorted out?
I'm very optimistic about it. I think during, again, Trump 1.0 administration, lots of things were facilitated for defense and security cooperation between India and the United States, including technology transfer, including arms purchases, and India bought billions of dollars of American military systems, and Trump was happy about it. Um, uh, and I'm sure in next 4 years, that is an area where the two countries are going to further strengthen their security relationship. As far as the environment is
Yeah,
concerned,
before that, if I can just make a quick point about this defense and security. Interestingly, this ISET agreement happened under Joe Biden, not under Donald Trump. So, will Donald Trump be equally? But somehow, at that time when Biden was president, it seemed the relationship had got a little derailed because of this constant insistence on weaponization of, what you can say, values based foreign policy. So let's hope that nothing like that is repeated again. And, instead of just having it on paper, these things are actually implemented.
ISET is one of the areas where the Quad countries are going to cooperate. It is one of the pillars of cooperation among all the four countries. The reason I'm optimistic about it is the Trump administration has already given a signal about this. Uh, just after a few hours of assuming office, State Department Secretary of State Mark Rubio, he held a meeting with Quad foreign ministers, and just a few hours after the inauguration of President Donald Trump. And a joint statement was also issued. That is a clear indication that the Quad countries are going to collaborate further. It was Donald Trump who revived Quad, which was in a dormant state for about 10 years, and he revived it in Manila in 2017. Because this particular quadrilateral security initiative is important for the US and the Quad members, Joe Biden did not sideline it. Rather, he elevated it to the level of summit.
Summit level, yes.
Now, because this was Donald Trump's baby, in a way, diplomatic baby, I think he's going to carry it further. And that signal was given by holding the first meeting of all the foreign ministers of the Quad member countries. At a time when the Europeans are worried and the Chinese, Russians are anxious, the Quad meeting is taking place. That shows that this ISET and other areas of cooperation among the Quad members will continue. And cyber security, for example, is another area where the cooperation will continue. Uh, about other issues, you said environment, climate change.
And
Uh,
tariff, of course.
you
After
know,
that, climate and
yeah, yeah,
tariff.
yeah.
Huh?
In case of climate change, India's contribution is tremendous. India has fulfilled its promises made in uh, all these UN conferences on climate. Uh, India is also one of the leaders in launching the Solar Alliance, International Solar Alliance. India is also responsible for a new movement called LIFE, L-I-F-E, that is how every individual should contribute towards the environment,
Yeah.
making the environment clean. As part of the G20, that movement, LIFE movement, was India's brainchild and all. Trump walking away from climate change is going to create a lot of problems, particularly in matters of financing. Unless good amount of money is contributed, technology is transferred, developing countries cannot abide by all those outcomes of the climate agreements and all. So that is where it is going to be unfortunate, and India cannot do much about it. India will keep on contributing in its own limited way to make the global environment clean. In case of energy, Donald Trump has, again, he has announced an emergency, asking people to drill, baby, drill,
Yeah.
more and more exploration of oil and coal. Now, that is going to pollute America, no doubt about it. But then my worry is he is going to defund all the research activities on renewable sources of energy. India and the US have signed very many agreements to innovate different ways and different mechanisms to, to produce renewable energy. Uh, that will be delayed. That will be delayed. But some of them which are already being implemented, I don't think that he's going to stop it. Some research is already going on and all. About the tariff issue, last time also when tariff was imposed on India, India selected its own items and imposed tariff on the US. Tariff war is a lose-lose proposition for both the sides, unless it is properly negotiated. I would also like to highlight that in case of this concern about trade surplus, you know, China, the European Union, they are running billions of dollars of trade surplus. India's trade surplus is very minimal. This is one. Secondly, I would rather recommend that both the intellectuals and the government officials, they should highlight this fact in the narrative that the tariff imposed on goods and commodities is a very small part of overall economic engagement. You have the service industry. American service industries are spread out into the rest of the world and making a lot of money. You have to see the American investment, global investment in very many parts of the world, including in India. They are reaping huge amount of profits out of that. So instead of harping on only tariff which is visible, it should be considered in a very comprehensive way. So these kind of arguments can be made during the dialogue and negotiations on such issues.
Do you see any possibility of an FTA happening between India and the US?
There will be talks and there will be no outcome.
Okay, so there's no FTA. Yeah, now when it comes to energy also, and obviously buying energy, I was just reading that, outcome of there was a bilateral between Mr. Jaishankar and Mark Rubio, the Secretary of State, and it seems that India has agreed to buy, among other things, oil from the US, which also brings me to the issue of India and Russia. How do you think Trump will be looking at the India Russia friendship, as well as that India has been buying energy from Russia? I mean, and then of course selling it to so many other countries, refined petroleum and refined petroproducts. So how do you think that front will pan out?
India has already been buying a lot of American oil to the billions of dollars worth of oil. It is costly. It is coming from faraway place and not from West Asia or from Russia. So India is already doing it because of American sanctions. Uh, if the war continues further, I think, and Trump imposes more sanctions, uh, probably he will try to arm twist India to buy more oil from the USA and not buy from Russia. He will try to do that. Uh, but I'm hopeful that Trump's approach towards Russia is different from Biden.
Yes.
Biden took extremely serious stand on the Ukraine war, saying that this is an affront to American ideals and democracy and security of the transatlantic area. And he waged almost a full-scale proxy war against Russia. He wanted to punish Russia to the extent of crippling the Russian economy. He gave full support to Ukraine, and he put a lot of pressure on most of the allies, particularly NATO allies, to support Ukraine. Trump's views are different. Trump is saying that we have to understand the concerns of Russia. Now, in what way Ukraine's membership in NATO is so important for protecting America? It's not. So he's looking at it in a different way. My worry is, I'm not saying this worry, my point is, by making statements on regaining control over Panama and buying Greenland and things like that, is he not sending signals to Putin that, well, you have captured Donbass? Okay, I want Greenland.
Oh gosh, that's terrible, absolutely
In the
thought.
sense that if you think in terms of norms and logic, how can a president prevent Russia from taking over control of Crimea and the Donbas area while claiming American control over Panama and asking Greenland to be part of the US?
Well, there's another way of looking at it. Trump has learned from Putin that, this is how you can do it.
Quite likely, quite likely.
Yeah, so you think there's going to be better understanding of India buying oil from Russia than maybe when it comes to Trump, than what Biden had?
I have a feeling that India believes and practices strategic autonomy. If the Trump administration is going to push India into the corner, India will do whatever is good for its interest. Under no circumstances in the foreseeable future, India is going to distance itself from the strategic partnership with Russia. Buying Russian oil, India made it very clear that we are not supporting the war efforts at all. At a time when Russia is under sanctions and the war is going on in the Middle East and energy crisis, any country and every country would like to have energy security. Without energy, industries don't function, transportation don't function, common people suffer. So India did whatever it did to protect its energy interest, and then pointed out that even the Europeans are buying Russian gas. And Russian gas are even sold in the US through third party. So pinpointing only India on this is very unfair game. So I think India is going to be assertive if Trump is going to push India into the corner. Otherwise, India is prepared to negotiate and then find out a way out of resolving the differences.
Yeah, now this is my last question in terms of the deep state of the US and what it's being said, what the deep state, the way it has brought about a government change in Bangladesh, and that has actually hurt India's strategic interests. So, do you see the deep state being active again, or will actually be Trump be able to dismantle the deep state? And what is exactly, and there's a lot of needling of India also has happened, perhaps because Biden had fallen ill, perhaps he was not aware of what was going on. So, all those things, do you think they will stop? And in terms of also Bangladesh, what will Trump do about that?
there are concerns that there was a direct or indirect American hand
Yeah.
in the regime change in Bangladesh. And that spell, in a way, political disaster for India and the United States. And if we add that to the Panun issue, where a declared terrorist is thumbing his nose at India and threatening Indian interest, roaming free in the US, and you add on to that the so-called Five Eyes, who are accusing India of murder of Mr. Nijar, another declared terrorist.
Absolutely.
These are the critical areas. I hope that the Trump administration will not give too much attention to this and irritate, annoy India. So I have a feeling that the deep state in the US, of course, the deep state has its own role.
What exactly is the deep state?
Deep state is basically the intelligence community, like FBI and CIA and so many other intelligence organizations, plus the entrenched bureaucracy. They are the ones who continue in position for a longer time than the 4 or 8 years term of an American president. Now, Donald Trump appears to be convinced that by using the deep state, the Biden administration weaponized the judicial system and law enforcement system to punish him, a kind of ghost hunting. So he wants to change that. But then, if you see on the basis of superficial norms, an American president can achieve his political and other goals only when the support base is with him. But if the support base is trying to cut his ideas from behind the scene or through the paperwork, then what is the use of a president having his own plans and programs to achieve? So he's trying to fix that. And he's trying to employ a political appointee by him in the top position of many, many departments. He has already asked the heads of many agencies to step down.
Yes.
So I don't think any president has ever done that in such a big scale. Americans have what is known as the spoil system. In the spoil system, whenever there is a change of government in the White House, the new president appoints an array of political appointees to very many positions so that his political platform and political promises will be fulfilled. But this is open challenge to the deep state and concerted effort to change the deep state and put people who are loyal to Trump. Americans only are challenging. Loyal to Trump, no good. Loyalty to the country should be there. And there is internal differences within the United States. The society is polarized.
So let's put it this way, the deep state is now going to be too concerned about saving its own skin to actually bother or notice what what is happening with India and Indian subcontinent. Thank you, Professor, for being on the show. What I can glean from this is that it's expected to be positive, the relationship.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's good. On that note, thank you once again for being on the show. Thank you, viewers, for watching. Until the next time.
Thank you, and thank you to all the viewers.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Yes.